Some people smile to forget the pain. Others smile to hide someone else's pain. Amari belonged to the second kind. On a bustling street in the financial district, where everything gleamed with a cold, polished luxury like the glass surfaces of skyscrapers, there was a café called Verve. It was the kind of place where suits sat on wooden chairs, where people making millions by the minute ordered coffee with names as long as a string of code. No foam hazelnut cappuccino, coconut macchiato, lightly iced oat latte. There, amid refined ceiling lights and the scent of premium roasted coffee, a black girl moved gently with a tray through the cold stairs. Amari, 27 years old, petite, eyes that smiled, skin as brown as fertile soil, walked softly like an early summer breeze. She was not special by this place's definition. Her uniform was slightly worn. The cuffs had tiny tears. Her shoes were old but carefully polished. She didn't have an MBA or a luxury smartwatch. But in this shiny world, she was the only genuine light because her smile was real. Table 6, sugar-free cappuccino, extra cinnamon. The manager's voice rang out from the counter like an alarm. He didn't need to look. He knew Amari would hear and do it right. The customer at table 6 was a woman in a cream suit, her hair straightened as if ironed by a laser. She looked at Amari from head to toe like she was inspecting merchandise, not acknowledging a person. No thank you. No nod. Amari smiled as she always did. She was used to those looks. Discrimination didn't need to shout. It came in the form of being overlooked, being scheduled for the most shifts, being excluded from raises given to fairer-skinned colleagues. Yet every morning, Amari still tied her apron, dabbed on burnt orange lipstick, and told her reflection in the mirror, "Today is better than yesterday, and so am I," because she had a reason greater than herself. Malik, her 16-year-old brother, hospitalized with end-stage kidney failure. He was all she had left after their parents were taken by illness and accident. She sold her belongings, emptied her tiny savings, even slept in the cafe's storage room to save on rent. She survived on smiles, hope, and tips from people who never remembered her name. "You're crazy, always smiling," Malik once said when he was conscious. Amari gently pinched his nose and laughed. "Because I want the last thing you remember, whenever you close your eyes, not to be the sound of a dialysis machine, but my smile." Verve, with its Italian espresso machines and fingerprint-free glass doors, was a place where no one knew Amari's name. They called her the Waitress, hey, or didn't call her at all, just waved like commanding a lifeless drone. Yet Amari still placed each drink on the table as if it were the most important gift of the day. She still asked gently, "Would you like more sugar?" Even though the reply was always a blank look. Amari was a dim light in a city of brilliance. No one noticed her. No one knew her. All they knew was she was always on time, always polite, always smiling. No one knew that this gentle light was about to change someone else's life, forever. Each morning, while the city still lingered in sleep, with car horns blending into the scent of fresh dust, a quiet mansion sat at the end of a white stone-paved street. Its ornate black iron gate opened to a carefully tended garden. Yet it lacked one thing, the laughter of a child. The house lacked nothing except life. Elena, 9 years old, lived in that house. She was blind. Her sight had been gone since she was 5, ever since the accident that took her mother's life. No one in the mansion ever said her mother's name aloud. There were no framed pictures in the living room, no bedtime stories beginning with "your mother once." Everything suggested that woman had never existed. But Elena remembered. Even without sight, she remembered the light scent of her mother's perfume, the swish of her dress when they walked together in the garden. Ethan Carrington, Elena's father, was the kind of man the press called a genius in the world of finance. But at home, he was more like a beautiful shadow, always busy, cold, and never able to hold a conversation with his daughter longer than 3 sentences. He loved Elena in the only way he knew how. He hired a private psychologist, brought in the best Braille tutor, even installed an audio system that helped her hear the location of objects through sound waves. But he never learned how to hold his child. Elena lived like a guest borrowing her own body. Every morning she heard the housemaid turn on the news on the radio. She guessed it was sunny if the window glass felt warmer than usual. And she knew her father had left for work when the house returned to perfect silence. She didn't make friends, didn't go to school, didn't open up. Because for Alina, the world had ended the day her mother died. Once the psychologist asked, "Do you feel sad because you can't see?" Alina answered softly, barely a whisper, "I'm not sad I can't see. I'm sad there's no one I want to see." Over the past 4 years, Ethan had gone through 8 different nannies. Some lacked patience, others were overly sympathetic. Some just saw it as a high-paying job. None could make Alina laugh. None could get her to speak more than a few short sentences. At one point, Ethan even thought, maybe she'll always be like this. Until one afternoon, when he took Alina to a downtown cafe to change the atmosphere and stepped away for a few minutes to handle a work call. Alina sat alone outside, holding her white cane, face tilted to a colorless sky. No one looked at her. No one stopped. No one knew she was crying, but someone saw her, a black waitress, petite, a smile like sunlight after the rain. Her name was Amari, and that encounter, seemingly accidental, would begin a journey no one could have predicted. The rain poured down suddenly, as if the sky itself wanted to shed someone's sadness. Droplets tapped against Verve's glass windows, like slow rhythmic knocks on the mind. Outside, the street was soaked. The scent of coffee and wet earth mixed into a quiet blend. On the outer edge of the cafe, near a wooden bench by the bougainvillea trellis, Alina was sitting there, alone. She had no umbrella, no raincoat, no adult with her, only a white cane lying still beside her, and her cream-colored cotton dress clinging wetly to her skin. She wasn't crying, but her small face soaked in rain looked as if waiting for something to be washed away. Inside the cafe, Amari had just handed a coffee to a customer and was quickly wiping a cup when she happened to glance toward the door. She froze, motionless, a child, a blind girl. Sitting alone in the rain, no one in the cafe noticed. No one found it strange. They had grown too used to looking through others. Amari grabbed the dry towel hanging from her shoulder and ran out, ignoring the manager calling after her. She didn't care who the girl was, didn't ask for permission, didn't consider whether she'd be reprimanded. She only saw a child, soaked, cold, alone, and in need of an embrace. "Hi there." Her voice was as soft as wind, gentle as touching a healing wound. "You must be very cold." The girl didn't answer. Amari knelt down, wrapped the towel around Alina's shoulders, and with her other hand, gently wiped the rain from the girl's face. The rain and the colorless tears mixed within. Alina whispered, "Who are you?" "I work here. My name is Amari," she said, then gently asked, "Where's your father?" Alina quietly replied, "He said he had to take a call in the car and that he'd come back." Amari looked around and spotted a sleek black car parked across the street. Inside, the man was hunched over his laptop. No one stepped out. No one called. "Shall we go inside for now?" Amari extended her hand, not imposing, not rushing, just offering a choice the girl had never received. Alina nodded, and so Amari led her inside slowly, as if lifting the steps of a fragile soul. Inside, heads began to turn. A black waitress leading a soaking wet child into a luxury cafe. The manager stared. A female customer frowned. Another staff member sighed, but Amari didn't care. She seated Alina beside the window, gently dried her hair, then quietly went into the kitchen to fetch a cup of hot chocolate and a soft roll, knowing full well that order had been reserved for another customer. She placed the cup down, sat beside her. "I've got hot chocolate. Would you like to try it?" Alina didn't answer, but her small hand reached out to, touched the cup, then lifted it to her lips. A faint smile, barely there, appeared on her face. "What's your name?" "Alina." "Such a beautiful name, like sunlight." Alina tilted her head as if surprised, to be complimented, to be genuinely noticed. Across the street, inside the car, Ethan Carrington looked up from his screen as thunder rumbled. He glanced through the window, just in time to see Amari wiping his daughter's hands, her gaze soft, her touch gentle. No pity, only real care. For the first time in years, Ethan saw his daughter smile. And the one who made that happen wasn't a doctor or therapist, but a black girl, ordinary, overlooked, standing behind the counter just that morning. A meeting in the rain. A hand extended at the right moment, and a destiny quietly beginning to change course. The rain outside hadn't fully stopped. The last few drops pattered softly against the car's windshield, as if trying to hold on to the remnants of a sky that hadn't yet finished grieving. Inside a platinum gray Mercedes, Ethan Carrington sat still behind the wheel. His laptop screen still displayed a Zoom meeting with partners in Zurich. Numbers, strategies, budgets, everything running smoothly except his own mind. Through the misted glass, Ethan's eyes were fixed on the scene across the street, where something was quietly shaking the cold world he had built. He saw his daughter Alina sitting in the cafe, holding a cup of hot chocolate. Next to her was the black waitress, the one he hadn't even noticed that morning. She was saying something to Alina, something small, nothing monumental, yet it made his daughter smile. No, not the polite kind of smile, not the one taught for manners. It was a real smile, gentle, fragile, and absolutely sincere. Ethan hadn't seen that since the accident. He had tried everything, hired top doctors from Switzerland, took his daughter on therapy retreats, built an advanced Braille classroom, but no one, not one expert, had ever made her smile like that. And the one who had was a waitress. No prestigious degree, no license, no recommendation from any therapy center. She sat beside Alina like a sister, a friend. No pity, no attempts to fix her, just being there, present, listening, caring, the one thing Ethan, no matter how wealthy, had never managed to do. He didn't realize when he had stopped typing, didn't notice his advisor had called his name 3 times. He slowly took off his headset, closed the laptop, and leaned forward, his elbows resting on the steering wheel. His eyes remained fixed on the cafe, where the rain had cleared, and a different kind of storm was quietly beginning inside him. Ethan Carrington was not easily moved. In the business world, he was a well-known wolf, ruthless, precise, unaffected by emotion. But now, sitting alone in his car, watching someone gently wipe his daughter's hands with a soft towel, someone he had never once noticed before, he felt something soften in his chest. It wasn't pain, not shame, not guilt. It was a long-forgotten emotion, delicate, real, and deeply human. He wondered, why couldn't I do what she just did? Why could a stranger, someone abandoned by society, make Alina smile when I, her own father, only drove her deeper into silence? Ethan sat there for a long time. He didn't call anyone, didn't step out. He just watched, and for the first time in years felt helpless. A gentle breeze swept by, fogging the window again. He reached to wipe it, as if trying to erase the distance between himself and what was awakening something inside him. After all the meetings, the high-stake deals, the luxury homes, the prestigious schools, it turned out that the thing that brought his daughter back to life was an unnamed act of kindness. Ethan Carrington didn't cry, but when he finally stepped out of the car, hands in his coat pockets, shoulders slightly shaking from the cold, his eyes had completely changed. No longer the eyes of a businessman, not even the eyes of a lost father, but the eyes of a man who had just seen his own heart again. Through the image of his child and a waitress named Amari, the air inside Verve Cafe was taut like a tightly drawn string. People had begun to realize what was happening. The blind girl sitting quietly in the cafe was none other than Alina Carrington, the only daughter of Ethan Carrington, the powerful, elusive, and notoriously particular billionaire. Everyone knew he didn't like anyone touching his child, let alone a staff member overstepping their role. What Amari, a black waitress, had done wasn't just talk. She had led his daughter inside, wiped her face, fed her. To some it was kindness, but to Ethan Carrington, it could be a serious mistake. The cafe manager, Mark, rushed over to Amari, whispering through clenched teeth, "Are you out of your mind? Do you know what you just did?" That's Carrington's daughter. He could sue the cafe and shut us down." Amari lowered her head, but not in regret. She only glanced at Alina, who lightly held the hem of her apron, her blind gaze turning toward the familiar voice. "Amari, are you still here?" Amari smiled. "I'm right here, sweetheart." The cafe doorbell chimed, the door swung open, and Ethan Carrington walked in. No one moved. Even the customers could feel the heavy presence that entered along with his sleek black coat. His eyes swept across the cafe. They met each avoided stare. Finally, they landed on Amari standing next to his daughter. Mark quickly stepped forward. "Mr. Carrington, I sincerely apologize for our staff's oversight. We will handle this internally." Ethan raised a hand, a small gesture, yet full of authority. He didn't look at Mark. He didn't listen to any explanations. He walked straight toward Alina, sat down, gently touched his daughter's hand. "Alina," he said, his voice softer than ever, "are you all right?" She nodded, holding his hand. "I'm okay. Amari was really nice. She gave me hot chocolate. And..." I smiled. "Did you know that?" Ethan looked up. His eyes met Amari's, the woman still standing there, hands gently clutching her apron, unsure of what was coming next. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then he stood. "You're Amari?" His voice was low, neutral, neither kind nor cold. Amari nodded. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry if..." "Don't," Ethan cut her off. "I didn't come here for apologies." The entire cafe froze. "You gave my daughter food?" "Yes, I did." "You wiped her face?" "Because it was raining, sir." "You sat with her for over 30 minutes without leaving?" Amari lifted her chin slightly, looked him in the eye. "Because she needed someone to stay." Ethan was silent. Then, he smiled. A rare smile, so unfamiliar that even Mark paused mid-breath. "Thank you, Amari," he said. "Thank you for seeing what others don't." Before Amari could respond, Ethan reached into his coat and pulled out a business card. He placed it on the table, then turned to his daughter. "Let's go home, Alina." "Dad," she tugged at his sleeve. "Can Amari come with us?" Ethan looked at her, then at Amari. "Not today, but if she wants to, one day soon." He gave Amari a slight nod, then took his daughter's hand and walked out of the cafe, leaving behind a stunned silence. Amari stood frozen. On the table lay the card. It read, "Ethan Carrington, Carrington Group, Chief Executive Officer." Below that, written in elegant black ink, was a single handwritten line. "I need you, not to serve, but to change something far more important." On Monday morning, Amari stood before the Carrington estate gate. Her hands trembled slightly, not from the cold, but from something unfamiliar, the sense that change was near. She wasn't wearing her apron today. There was no tray, no voice calling out, "Table 6." Instead, she wore a simple white blouse, well-fitted black trousers, and carried a small bag in her hand, holding all the hope and fear of someone long accustomed to being overlooked. The automatic gate opened as if to welcome her. Inside was a picture-perfect garden, though devoid of birdsong or the sound of children playing. Only silence, meticulously maintained. A gray-haired woman, Ethan's personal assistant, led her inside. "Mr. Carrington will see you later. For now, Miss Alina is in the back garden. You may start there." There was no contract, no handbook, no formal training session, just an invitation to be a friend to a child. Though this child didn't smile, didn't talk much, and trusted no one. Alina was seated beneath the large maple tree in the garden. Her white cane rested nearby, her dark hair tied loosely behind her neck. Upon hearing footsteps approach, she turned toward the sound. "Amari!" Her voice was like a small wind chime stirred by a breeze. Amari smiled and knelt beside her. "Hello, little lady of the secret garden." Alina gave a soft smile. "You like to imagine things too." "Not just imagine. I can make pancakes out of imagination." And so they began. No pressure, no therapy, no grand promises. Just morning hot chocolates together, afternoon stories told through the scent of flowers and the feel of the wind. Amari taught Alina how to identify plants by the smell of their leaves, to find the sun by the sound of birds, and even how to paint with her hands. "You think I can paint?" "With touch. You can use clay or fabric. Art doesn't need eyes, it needs feeling. Alina began to laugh more. She slowly set aside her cane, touched the stone bench, ran her hands over the statues in the garden. One day, Amari saw her sit on the ground, take off her shoes, and let her tiny feet feel the earth. The ground is cold, but somehow I feel like I'm touching something alive. Because the earth is breathing too, Amari whispered. From a distance, Ethan watched through his large office window. He saw his daughter smiling, not because of expensive toys, but because someone was listening. He didn't come out. He just watched, quietly, grateful, and amazed that a woman once pushed aside by the world was now teaching him the art of connection. One evening, as Amari was about to leave, Alina held her hand. Amari, will you come again tomorrow? I'll come every day if you want me to. Not because my dad pays you, number because I want to see you, not for money, not for duty, because you are Alina, the girl whose heart is starting to bloom. Alina said nothing, but she hugged Amari for the first time, a trembling hug like the first sprout rising after a long winter. It was a cool afternoon. The clouds drifted slowly. A gentle breeze swept through the Carrington Estates garden, where the tallest maple tree stood and the wooden swing had been newly padded to keep Alina safe. Amari was watering the lavender bushes nearby, softly humming an old jazz tune as she occasionally glanced at the little girl sculpting with clay. She had grown used to these peaceful afternoons, but today, something felt off. There was a faint sound, barely noticeable, like footsteps. Amari looked up. She froze. About 5 meters ahead, where no one expected a girl who couldn't walk to reach, Alina was standing. No cane, no support. She stood steadily and bent down to pick up the bracelet she had just dropped onto the grass. Amari held her breath. She couldn't believe her eyes. The girl wasn't paralyzed. She moved with precision, as if she had done it many times before, but that wasn't all. The next moment struck like a blow. Alina turned her head toward the light. A white butterfly landed on a nearby flower, and the girl followed it with her gaze. Not sensing, not guessing. She was seeing. Those eyes, though not fully open, clearly reacted to movement. Amari felt as if her heart had fallen out of her chest. A rush of questions surged through her mind. She's not blind, not paralyzed, no need for the cane. So all this time, was it a lie? Or was it some form of resistance she hadn't yet understood? She stepped back, accidentally knocking over a sage plant, which crashed to the ground. The noise startled Alina. The girl quickly turned back and collapsed as if she had lost all strength again. She was suddenly the blind girl once more, unable to walk, needing her cane, needing support. Amari ran over and caught her like she always did. Her heart was pounding. "Are you okay?" I tripped on the grass." Alina's voice trembled like a child caught doing something forbidden. That night, Amari didn't leave right away. She sat alone in the garden after Alina had gone to bed, staring into the distance. A housekeeper walked past and asked gently, "Are you all right?" Amari didn't answer immediately. At last, she whispered as if speaking to herself, "She's hiding, not from others, from the pain inside her." She walked into Ethan's study. He looked up. "What is it?" Amari hesitated, then spoke slowly. "Are you sure the girl is blind and paralyzed?" Ethan stared at her as if she had just insulted the family name. "What are you suggesting?" "This afternoon, I saw Alina stand up, walk, and follow a white butterfly with her eyes." Silence. Amari didn't back down. "She's not blind and she's not paralyzed, but she's pretending as if she doesn't want to live as a normal person." Ethan shot to his feet. "Impossible. I took her to every expert, even the top hospitals in Switzerland. Doctors said her nervous system was damaged from trauma, that her chances of recovery were minimal." Amari stood firm. "Maybe her body healed, but not her mind. She's keeping herself in the dark because it feels safer there. No one asks questions, no one expects anything, and no one mentions her mother." Ethan said nothing. For the first time, the man who had once shaken financial markets stood frozen, as if someone had shattered the glass wall around his heart. "Her mother," his voice was hoarse, "died in the accident, on the way to pick her up. And was the one driving that day. The confession cracked the air like a blade cutting straight into an unhealed wound. Amari stepped closer, gently but firmly. Then your daughter doesn't need more doctors. She needs the truth, and someone patient enough to guide her out of her own shadow. That night, Ethan sat in front of Alina's bedroom door, staring at the strip of light spilling through the crack. He remembered those wide eyes, not blind, following the butterfly. And he remembered his own when he no longer knew how to do anything but hide. That night, there was no rain. But within the Carrington estate, another kind of storm was brewing, silent, fierce, and unfolding in the hearts of three people, each in a different corner of the house. Ethan sat in front of his daughter's bedroom door, eyes staring at a blank, silent wall. Amari was in the hallway, holding the notebook where she had recorded everything since the day she met Alina, wondering what to do next. And inside the dark room, Alina sat still on her bed. She wasn't sleeping, not crying, not smiling, just keeping her eyes half open, staring into nothingness, a habit no one had noticed. She was acting blind even when no one was watching. A soft knock at the door. "Alina, it's me, Amari." Silence. No reply, but the door wasn't locked. It slowly opened. Amari stepped inside with a thin blanket, a warm glass of milk, and a small wooden stylus with raised carvings, something she had brought from home to gift Alina for tactile drawing. "I know you're awake," Amari said gently. "Because I am too." She sat down beside the bed, not too close, not forcing anything. "There's something I've never told you, that for years I didn't want anyone touching me either. Didn't want anyone to be kind to me, because I was scared that if they cared and then left, the pain would double." Alina shuddered slightly. For the first time she spoke. "I don't want them to leave again." "You mean your mom?" Amari asked, soft as wind. Alina nodded. "She told me she'd pick me up after piano class. I waited, but she never came back. Instead, there was the accident, the bad news, and the lights went out." Amari remained silent. "I don't trust anyone anymore," Alina continued, her voice raw. "Because everyone who comes, leaves, and I can't bear to lose anyone else. So I don't want to see anyone, don't want to walk, don't want to go anywhere. If I stay still, people will ignore me. I'll be forgotten. And that way, I won't have to hurt." The air felt stretched to its breaking point. Amari didn't respond right away. She simply placed the blanket gently on the girl's hand. "So you choose to hurt quietly every day, rather than risk the chance at happiness, even if it means you might lose it?" Alina froze. "That's not living, Alina. That's hiding from life. I don't blame you, but I won't let you stay in that hole forever." She placed the wooden stylus into Alina's palm. "This is the first carved pen I ever received, from a teacher who believed in me when the rest of the class mocked me for being black. I've kept it for 12 years. Now I'm giving it to you, because I believe you can redraw your life in your own way." Alina held it. Her hands trembled, not out of fear, but because for the first time in years, she could feel a hand reaching out, not to drag her, but to stay with her. The next morning, Ethan walked into the dining room and saw Amari by the window, and Alina was sitting at the table without her cane. "You're not using your cane today?" His voice cracked. Alina turned to him, not avoiding his gaze. "I want to try, because someone believes I can walk." Ethan looked at Amari, then at his daughter. "Can you believe that too?" Alina asked, her voice light but sharp as a blade cutting through the deepest part of his heart. Ethan stepped forward. He knelt. No longer a CEO, no longer a powerful man, just a father, relearning how to love from the beginning. "I won't ask you to forgive me. I only ask for one chance, to walk beside you instead of behind your shadow like I did before." Alina looked at him, then placed her hand on his knee and nodded. A shaky nod, but enough to rekindle the fire in a place long gone cold. Some mornings arrive like gifts, not loud, not forewarned, just gently opening a new chapter of life. Today was one of those mornings. Alina, wearing a white linen dress, walked slowly along the long hallway of the Carrington estate. No cane, no one supporting her. No more pretending to be blind. Only half-open eyes, not fully steady, not quite ready to meet the world head-on, but accepting light for the first time in 4 years after living inside the shell she built for herself. Amari stood at the bottom of the staircase, her eyes stinging. She didn't cheer. She didn't clap. She didn't make a scene. She simply placed her hand over her heart and smiled. Because she knew, a child walking without needing a hand is a good thing. But a child who once rejected all connection and now chooses to walk towards someone, that's a miracle. I see you, Elena said first. And I see you. Truly, Amari replied, stepping forward. They embraced. This time there was no trembling, no fear of loss, only gentleness and quiet trust. At the office doorway, Ethan watched, and he knew he had to step out of his role as the silent father, not to be a hero, but to be human, honest, vulnerable, and willing to heal. At breakfast, no one mentioned money, schooling, or doctors. Instead, Elena asked her father, "Do you know how to make the cheesecake Mom used to bake?" The kitchen fell silent. Ethan lowered his head. "I don't, but I can learn. If you show me." Elena smiled. "You don't need to. Amari knows how." Then turned to Amari. "Can you teach both of us?" Amari nodded. "Then today's special class will start with crumbs and smiles." In the days that followed, strange sounds echoed through the Carrington estate. Laughter, clumsy noises from a father learning to cook, piano notes from a once-forgotten room where Alina played a song her mother used to love. And in the midst of it all, there was conversation. No longer hesitant, no longer mechanical pleasantries. Amari became a bridge, but over time she realized she was no longer just the kind-hearted helper. She had become part of this family, a thread stitched into the hearts of a father and daughter, holding them together. One afternoon, Alina sat in the garden, gently running her fingers over the necklace her mother had left behind. She said to Amari, "I don't think I'm afraid of the light anymore, but I'm still afraid of loving again. Because when you love someone and they leave, you lose a part of yourself." Amari sat beside her. "I understand, but if you never love, you'll never find the part of yourself you thought you lost. Love can hurt, but it's also the only way to live fully." That night, Ethan brought Amari an envelope. She opened it. It was an official offer to become Alina's personal care and development advisor, with a salary 5 times what she earned at the cafe and a private apartment near the estate. Amari looked at him and gently shook her head. "Thank you, but I don't need paperwork to stay." Ethan looked at her, for the first time truly seeing her. "Then what do you need?" Amari answered softly, eyes turning toward Alina's room. "Just to be someone the girl trusts, and someone you're willing to trust too." Ethan didn't respond. He simply held a glass of wine and for the first time raised it not to celebrate a business deal, but to toast a woman who dared to love his daughter like her own. From that day forward, the light in the Carrington estate was no longer triggered by motion sensors. It was real light, from the heart. From a girl who once hid in darkness, a father who had forgotten how to feel, and a black woman once dismissed as lesser, now stepping forward. Together it was an autumn morning, with soft winds and gentle sunlight. Amari folded a handkerchief into her suitcase and glanced at her phone. A message from the provincial hospital read, "Darius's condition is worsening. If possible, return soon." Darius, her only brother, the boy she used to carry to school every day, the only family she had left after the house fire 10 years ago. And the reason she never left the city for long, because she needed to earn money to keep him alive. Ethan entered the living room just as she was closing the suitcase. "How is your brother?" he asked without pretense. Amari looked up, her voice calm but her eyes red. "The doctors say he needs an urgent bone marrow transplant, but the cost is more than I can afford." Ethan didn't ask further. He simply placed a document on the table. It was a bank transfer order for $200,000, the exact amount the hospital had requested. Amari was stunned. "You don't have to do this." Ethan looked her in the eye. "Not out of obligation, but because I owe your brother a sister." "Dad." Alina's voice rang from the hallway. "I want to go with Amari." Ethan turned to her. "Are you sure? To the countryside? A place you've never been?" No phone signal, no internet, no therapists? Alina gave a soft smile. But someone needs me, and I want to try being the one who supports, not the one being protected. And so they left. A black SUV rolled away from the Carrington estate, heading toward a small town in the south, where the scent of fresh grass mingled with dust, where time moved slower, and people spoke more through their eyes than through business cards. Darius, 17 years old, his skin darkened by medication, lay frail on a narrow hospital bed. When he saw Amari walk in, he grinned. "You're wearing white again. Look like an angel, still bossy like a demon." Amari laughed through tears. "I brought pumpkin bread, your favorite." Darius looked toward the door. "And the girl is—" Alina stepped in slowly, holding a bunch of wildflowers. "Hello, I'm Alina. Amari said you like old jazz and hate noisy nurses." Darius blinked, surprised. "And you? I used to not see anyone, not walk. Now I'm learning to notice people." In the days that followed, Darius's hospital room no longer felt gloomy. Alina stayed with him, reading aloud in her soft voice, wheeling him out for sun and teaching him how to paint without hands, using imagination and thought. One day, Darius asked, "Aren't you afraid of dying, Alina?" She shook her head. "I used to be more afraid of living." They both laughed. Then Darius whispered, "My sister carried the world on her shoulders. I just lay here. Is that fair?" Alina held his hand. "No one needs to carry anything alone. But if you want to keep going, then live for both of you." Outside, Amari and Ethan sat on an old wooden bench in front of the house their mother once owned. Ethan looked at the sunset. "I used to think money could protect my daughter from pain," Amari replied. "And I used to think love was a luxury someone like me didn't deserve to ask for." Ethan turned to her. "And now?" Amari smiled, gazing into the distance. "Now I think if people can find each other through the cracks, that's the most beautiful kind of light." 3 weeks later, Darius was taken into surgery. The marrow transplant lasted 6 hours. Amari clutched Ethan's hand. Alina sat silently in her lap, her head against Amari's chest, whispering, "I'm scared, but I'm staying." The surgery was a success. The doctor stepped out, smiling. "He'll live, probably because he has a reason to." That night in the quiet countryside, 3 people not bound by blood lay together on a bamboo bed on the porch, sharing a single blanket. Alina whispered, "I used to think losing my mom was the end, but now I see maybe it was a comma, because after that, I got Amari, and I got Dad." Ethan turned to her. "And I got you, along with the woman who taught me how to love again." 3 months after Darius's surgery, the black SUV rolled back into the city. This time there were no tense faces, no guarded hearts, just 3 people. A man who had once forgotten his own heart, a girl who had once locked herself in the dark, and a black woman once seen as inferior, now sitting together like a family. Carrington Group. 38th floor, strategic boardroom. Ethan stood before a room filled with senior executives. On the screen behind him was a new name recently added to the nomination list, Amari J. Daniels, Senior Advisor for Human Development and People Strategy. One board member frowned. "Sir, with all due respect, she used to be a waitress." Another muttered, "No MBA, no managerial background, and she's, well, black." At that moment, the door opened. Alina walked in. No invitation, no announcement, but no one dared stop her. The 12-year-old girl stood tall, eyes clear, voice firm. "And I used to be a child who couldn't speak, couldn't smile. I was trapped in my own body." She turned to Amari, standing at the doorway. "The only person who pulled me out of that wasn't a doctor, wasn't a specialist. It was her." The silence was deafening. Ethan smiled for the first time during a board meeting. "If you're looking for grades, she scores a perfect 10 in people's hearts. If you want data, check the employee retention stats since Amari started internal coaching. And if you want a leader who knows how to listen, she has heard every voice others ignored." Amari stepped into the room. She didn't bow, didn't shrink. She wore a simple black suit, clean and composed but full of presence. Her eyes didn't flinch before anyone. She was no longer asking for a job. She was being invited in. for her ability, her heart, and her impact. Several people nodded. One whispered, "We were wrong about her." Amari simply smiled. "That's all right, as long as today I'm no longer judged by my skin or my past, but by the way I live and lead." When the meeting ended, Alina took Amari's hand. "See? You've stepped into the light, and you don't need anyone to hold the umbrella now." Amari looked at her, then turned to Ethan, standing at the end of the hallway, quietly watching. She nodded. "And so have you." That evening, the three of them sat on the rooftop balcony of the Carrington estate. The wind played through their hair. The city lights below glowed like an artificial galaxy. Darius called from the countryside, his voice stronger. "Sis, I heard you're a boss now?" "No, Darius, I'm just someone who knows how to listen." "Then that's better than being the boss." They all burst out laughing. In the end, no one saved anyone else. They were simply three broken souls who chose to stay and heal together. No one was perfect, but all were honest. A black waitress once treated as invisible, a girl who pretended to be blind to hide from the world, and a father who thought money could replace love. They didn't find a way out. They built a new one with kindness, courage, and a new belief that when we dare to love again, even after pain, that is the truest light.